Okay, let's talk about masks. Now, this is a very large topic to cover, and we will see a lot of stuff in this video. First of all, what is a mask? A mask is a black and white image like this one, and the masks are needed to make a selection because you want to modify only a part of the image. Okay, so there's many ways to make masks. There's many ways to get masks, even from render engines, or you can just make them manually with some tools here in Photoshop. But first of all, let's take a look at this file. For example, here in this folder, as you can see, we have some content, and every content has its own mask. And that's because we want to change only a particular part of the building, for example, and so we need the mask there on the group. As you can see here, if I hide this group about glasses, only glasses will change and nothing else. And this is the right way of working, because then you can little by little adjust the whole image, working piece by piece. And it's kind of a different workflow than probably what you are used to, but this is the right way to get to the final look little by little, and doing exactly, making some differences, exactly where you want. Now, as we said, a mask is a black and white image. White will show you something, while black will completely hide something else. Of course, you can have gray colors in masks, and if you have a 50% gray, that means you have a 50% opacity. The content will be 50% visible. But in this case, these masks are coming from the render engine. For example, this one is kind of old way to get masks. Nowadays, with the ID tool plugin, we have these kind of masks, which are red, green, and blue. But they are basically the same of this. These just like three masks together. So when you get this kind of masks, if you want to get a single mask, what to do? You need to go to the channels. You need to first, make this mask visible, and then you need to go to the channels, and here you have red, green, and blue channel. And you can, for example, you want to select the red one, you can control click on in the thumbnail of the red channel, and here we go. Here we have the mask. Now, why channels are important when we talk about mask? Because channels are where masks can be stored, where mask belongs. And if let's say that you need this mask a lot of time, you can make the selection by control clicking on the right channel, and then you make a new mask here, and then you invert the content with Control I. And this is one way to have to save a mask as an alpha channel. And as you can see now, I have the selection. I press Control D to unselect this area. But every time I want this selection back, I can control click on the thumbnail, and that's it. I can go back on the layers and then make a new layer and use this button here to apply this selection as a mask. And as you can see, it works out of the box, and we can do something here. I don't know, I can paint something, and of course, that painted layer is visible only through the white areas. Of course, we can choose to modify this mask. So if you want to modify this mask manually, I would say, I don't know, you can just select the mask itself and not the layer content. As you can see, we have four white corners around the thing you are selecting. Now I'm selecting the mask, and you can modify the mask if you want, just by painting on the mask or stuff like this. So this is the simple concept. Okay, every time you need to modify something, you need to go and search for the mask coming from the 3D software. For example, this one is, I don't know, I want to modify the concrete. I have this mask, it's fine for me. I need the selection. I go to the channels, I select the red channel because it's the one I need, and then I can save here the mask as I told you, make a new channel, Control I to make the selection white, and then go back to the layers, and I have the right selection to do something. And I don't know, you can also add an adjustment. For example, I had some curves, and when you have a selection and you add an adjustment, then the mask is made by itself, made automatically. And as you can see now, I can just make the concrete a little bit brighter, just as a test. Okay, so this is pretty cool because what you need at the end of the day is selection. So masks are used to make selections. You always start from a mask from here, from the render engine. Then you go in the channels, you select which channel you want to create the mask from, and then you go back here in the layers and you do what you need to do. So for example, you can have, I don't know, a new group, and you can add this selection as a mask of the group, clicking by this this button here. And as you can see now, I have a master group for chairs, and everything I do inside here will basically affect only the chairs. Okay, and I'm painting, but it's just an example. You can do whatever you want. So this is the main reason why we use masks, to change the content of an area, to change the render only in one part of it. And we can have different kind of mask. Actually, everything can become a mask. For example, you can have some passes here. I don't know, the Z depth can turn into a mask, because if I preview the Z depth and then I go into the channels and I click on the red or green or blue, in this case is the same because it's a black and white image, so these three channels looks the same. And here I can have a new mask from the Z depth. Now, why we should have a mask from the Z depth? I don't know, maybe we need to invert it, and this is the mask of the fog. So I can click on here, Control, and then I can go back on my render, and I can have a curve, and I can just get it brighter when is far away. So this is not the right way to make a fog, but this is the right way to make the mask for the fog. And masks are also useful when you need to make a quick selection inside a group where you have already a mask. So normally what the mask on the group is what I call the master mask, the king mask, I would say. And the mask on the group will basically say, okay, this is the area we are going to work in, and then maybe I want to change just, I don't know, something inside that area, and this I can make a selection, and then I can mask again. And so I'm sure that I'm not going outside these glasses, for example. I don't know. Maybe we can paint a little bit of white here, you see? And I'm sure I'm not going outside the main mask because I'm inside this group with this main mask. And also these masks is stopping me to paint out of it. Why it's happening? Well, when you have a layer with a mask and this layer is inside a group with a mask itself, then it's like saying that you have two masks for one layer, and you can see the result if you control click on the first mask, one of those, and then you press Control Shift Alt and you click on the second one to make the intersection. And this is basically the final area where you can paint if you paint on this layer. And this brings us to the mathematical operations you can do with masks. So when you have a selection, you can add selections, you can subtract selections, or you can intersect some selections. So for example, let's say you want a selection of the glasses plus the selection of the path, because you want to add an adjustment on both of them at the same time. You can control click on the first mask to make the first selection, and then you need to press Control Shift. And as you can see on the small icon of the small hand, I can see here instead of the arrow, I have a plus. And if I click on the second mask now, I add that mask as a second selection. So now I added this one to this one. If I want to subtract another mask, I need to press Control Alt instead. And so if I click in here, if this mask is on top of this one, it will basically subtract. And as you can see, it is working. The previous example, I show you how to make an intersection. So basically, to select the areas which are in common between two masks. So for example, I click again on this one, and then I click again on this one by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt on the keyboard, and you see this is basically the area these two masks have in common. And guys, if you learn how to add, subtract, and intersect masks, well, you are a step ahead, because what is normally difficult to do is to make a selection, not to add an adjustment. Let's see another couple of things about masks coming from your render engine. Now, as you can see, I put them all here inside a group. And what I've done here, I add a completely black layer at the bottom, because by default, those masks come from a transparent background. And so if I see just one of it, you can see under this mask, I can see the rest of the PSD file interfering with this. And this is not cool, because if I go into the channels and I want to select the reds, you see, I'm selecting also a part of the render. So this is not good. When you have masks with a little bit of transparency, as you can see here from the thumbnail, you need to put a black layer at the bottom. And so the selection, when you go back in the channels, will be perfect. Okay, so first thing to do is, when you have masks, group them into a mask folder and put a black layer at the bottom. Second thing, how to know if you are missing some masks. Now, you can do this. You can make every mask you have visible and then select them all except for the last one. You don't need to select the last one. And you can change the blending mode to linear dodge add. And in this way, all the colors except black will sum up together, and you can see in black areas where you are actually missing a mask. So, I mean, don't lose your sleep over this, because you can, even in this situation, in this case, you can have a solution. There's a solution, and the solution is this. You can select everything from the channel. So I Control click on red, Control Shift to add green mask, Control Shift to add blue masks. And now I have the red, green, and blue selection loaded, and I invert the selection. So invert the selection is Control Shift I. So now I have all the black areas selected. And if I go back to the layers and I select the rectangular tool, I can just drag and drop a rectangle on top of this, for example, because I want this area. By pressing Shift and Alt, I will intersect that area. And when I release the mouse button, boom, I have, that area selected, and I can go to the channels, for example, add new mask, and invert with Control I to get the mask of that area. So don't worry if you are mixing some mask, you can make them using the other masks, the red and green and blue, invert them and intersecting the results. The only masks you are not going to be able to do are something like this one, because this one, you see, there's no red around this, but maybe you have the mask of the whole thing. You see, if you Control click on the thumbnail of a layer, you will select the entire layer shape. So as you can see in this one, we have even this small border here. So what to do if I want to select this one? Well, again, channels, red, Control Shift to add green and blue, and then I invert the selection, Control Shift I, and then I intersect with this one. So Control Shift Alt and click. And you see, I have now this selection. And then again, with the rectangular tool, I can Shift Alt and do this. And now I have this mask too. So, I mean, it's a little bit complicated, but it's doable, okay? It's doable. Again, if you know how to get selections, if you know how to get masks, guys, it's 50% of the work done, okay? If you want, you can change some masks options. If you select the mask, then in the property tab, you have density, which is basically the opacity of the mask, but this is non-destructive, so you can, get back here and change it as you want. And also the feather, so the blur of the mask. Now, this stuff here is not something I use that often, but it's there, and if you want to use it, it's available. It also may happen that you want to modify the mask itself. I mean the borders of the mask. In that case, you can double click on the mask and these new options will pop up, and you can change the view mode to overlay. So you can see in red the areas which are not selected by the mask. And you have some edge detection, which is basically a smart way to understand better how the mask should be. But this is not about, this is not going to happen for you for this mask coming from the render engine. This is kind of good if you use the magic wand or some other kind of selections, and it works better with natural, with photo about nature or stuff like that. In this case, we are not going to use it. But anyway, if you need it, you can check smart radius and increase the radius and stop when you are happy. In this case, we are not going to use this. And then you have smooth feather, contrast, and shift edge. Smooth will basically make some round corners on the vertices of your mask. Feather will blur it. Contrast will make it stronger and sharper, which is not great most of the cases because you want a good transition between the selected pixels and the non-selected pixels. And then you have the shift edge will make, will push or pull the pixel in and out. So I don't know, if you feel you need to modify a little bit of the mask, then you have these controls. Long story short, I never use this stuff with masks coming from the render engine because they should be all right as they come from the software. So, but anyway, if you need the stuff, it's here. I use these options when I manually make a mask using the lasso tool or the brush, maybe with people, or vegetation, or anyway photos you add on top of the render. Sometimes you want to unlink the content of a layer with the mask of the layer, and in that case you can click on this link icon, and now the content is completely on its own. If you move this one, the mask will stay, is going to stay where it is. So you see I'm moving the content, I move this black paint, and this mask is at the same place no matter what. And then at the end, if you do something like this, remember to link them again. Otherwise, if this layer is inside the group and you move the group, then the mask is going to stay in the same place no matter what. And remember, if you are working with V-Ray 5, there's another way to create masks, which is called Cryptomatte. And you can find a link to a blog post of the State of Art Academy website to understand how to use them. And that's it.